Hey guys, Jessica Schwartz here. I wanted to jump on today and talk a little bit about editing and the editing process, as well as where to find an editor. This is going to pretty much mostly pertain to manuscript and book editing, but of course, if you're looking for somebody who can edit your white paper or your technical manual or your website copy or a Kickstarter campaign page, you can absolutely find editors in the similar way. So I want to talk a little bit about the editing process and the two main types of editing. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how to find an editor and how to cultivate a really good editing author relationship. Okay, the two main types of editing are copy editing is the first one and developmental editing is the second one. Copy editing is a lot, basically what it sounds like. It's more of a line-by-line copy edit. So you're doing proofreading, you're looking for syntax, punctuation, grammar. You're looking for general proofreading style edit. And of course, that editor will also make any suggestions when it comes to if there's like an inconsistency or if there is a major structure issue, they will let you know, but that's not really part of it. Really, the editing is more of a proofreading where you're looking at the copy and you're editing it and polishing it. Developmental, sometimes called substantive editing, is actually significantly more substantive. In some cases, developmental editors will actually work with authors while they're still writing the book to help them do more of an entire book edit. So for example, they can consult with you on the book's order and structure, and then throughout the process with the structuring and what needs to be rewritten and working with you. However, if you have a manuscript and you're looking for developmental or substantive editing at the end and the book is already written, then what that refers to is when you're editing more than just copywriting. So you're not copy editing, you're not just looking for the proofreading mistakes, although of course that's part of the editing process. You're actually looking for things like word choices, intent. They're actually looking through the content and finding places where maybe something should be explained differently or better or more elaborately. Maybe they're looking for inconsistencies and plot holes, looking for word choices like people who use very or that much more often than they realize, suggesting word changes, suggesting ways to improve the structure and the content. So developmental editing really is, it's a copy edit plus. It's all of the regular proofreading and copy editing, plus actually looking through the content and trying to edit and help you develop your book in the content. So typically developmental editing will cost a little bit more and copy editing, of course, will be a little less expensive. So let's talk a little bit about editing and the editing process. Editing is really important. Maybe people don't realize, I mean, even the best writers need editors. When you're writing, it's often hard to see the forest for the trees. You really need to be able to take a step back and allow a third perspective, a third party, to walk in and read your book and really allow you to get a fresh perspective, get new opinions. They're going to see things that you don't see. For example, a lot of people don't realize that they use the word said or very or that or much, these very common words when they write. They don't see how often they're using it, but then you have someone who's coming in and they're looking specifically for that to help you make more dynamic word choices or remove the word that when it's not necessary or when it should be which or who. So editing is absolutely required. I am working with a traditional publisher now, and one of the first things they said to me was, one of the reasons we decided to take you on is because your self-published book was done professionally. They said that it was very clear that I took it seriously, that I had it professionally edited, that I had a professional cover done. I didn't just put a Word document up on Amazon. I really took it very seriously. And I still do. I didn't know that I was going to be picked up by a trade publisher someday. I really treated it very seriously and took it as a business choice and as a personal choice as an author, really wanted it to correctly represent me. And that's what you want. When you read a book that's not edited, it doesn't feel right. When you're distracted by typos and errors and issues and plot holes, if somebody says that For example, if someone calls somebody Natalie in one scene, but a couple pages later they're calling her Natalia, and then calls her Natalia for the rest of the book, that's something you notice. And when you have a lot of those types of errors, then what's going to happen is people get distracted. They stop reading. They might leave negative reviews, which is, of course, terrible. But editing is important. I'm a professional writer. I still have editors that I use for my professional writing. Whenever I write a book, I have professional editors that come in after me and do a full edit. So the editing process for me, if you were to come to me and you say, hey, I wrote a book, I need editing, I'd say, great. How long is your book? So when editors are looking at pricing, what we're looking for is a word count. In general, is one of the main things that we need. And the other one is the type of editing you're looking for. So going back to that copy editing versus developmental. So if someone came to me and they said, hey, I wrote a 50,000 word book, I'm only looking for copy editing, I would immediately take out my calculator. And since I charge a per word pricing, I would do 50,000 words times 6 cents per word, which is $3,000. So I would base my estimate on on the word count. Now, some people do choose to do an hourly rate and estimate how long a book will take them to edit and do an hourly rate for their total. Some people have a much higher per word pricing. If you would ask me for substantive edits, it would be 9 or 10 or 11 cents a word, depending on the genre and how much work you need. So you can see how the pricing can be variable. But the two main ways to determine pricing are to either have an hourly rate and estimate how long it'll take them, which is still based on word count and on the type of editing that you need, or for somebody to just have a flat per word pricing. So those are the two main ways to get pricing, as well as the two main types of editing. And I want to talk a little bit about my process, which is really the only one I can give because I don't know how everyone works. I know I've had authors come to me and say that they had given their manuscript to an editor. The editor disappeared for a month and came back with their book, and they were confused. They didn't know exactly what had changed. Maybe they didn't agree with some of the changes, but they didn't have the information to talk to the editor about it, or exactly where those changes were made. And they weren't comfortable with that. And so because I've had a lot of authors tell me these types of stories, my editing process is very collaborative. So what I do is I put a manuscript in Google Docs, and then I give the author commenting access to it. So they can't make changes without me knowing, but they can make changes and they can add comments and they can reply to comments. So they can do whatever they want. It's just that I'll know if something changed. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But the main one is, as I'm editing, they're now able to come into this document and see my progress, see what I'm working on, see where I am in the book. They're able to answer comments. So a lot of times during the editing process, I will highlight something and write a comment and say, hey, I'm not sure I understand this. What are you trying to say? Or suggesting a word change or suggesting a restructuring. And they're able to come back in on their own time without having to schedule it and actually reply to those comments. They can either make changes, they can reply to the comment and say, yes, I agree, or no, I don't want to do that. And they're able to be involved in the process and understand where I am in the process at all times. So that's my style. I think that that's really important. I do 3 editing passes. The first pass is for general content and any inconsistencies or word choices or structure issues or questions, especially if it's a nonfiction book. A lot of times the experts will leave in acronyms without explaining them, which is something that I always highlight because I think it's really important to not just use jargon, but to explain what those acronyms mean and why we use them. The second pass is a copy edit, looking specifically for punctuation, grammar, and syntax. And then the third is a basic read through to really see if I missed anything, check to see that, just make absolutely sure that there's no inconsistencies and that it's polished. And then I give it to the author for final review. Now, an editor is not a dictator. So if you don't agree with something that your editor suggests, you're allowed to say no. It's your book. It's your name on the cover. It has to represent you. You're allowed to say no. So just be aware that, don't be afraid to stand up for your book or for your message or for your tone. Don't be afraid to say, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. I really prefer it the other way. Or to say, I preferred the other word choice. I'm not going to go with this. Most editors are not going to take that personally. It's part of the job. We're not omnipotent. We're not here to dictate what your book should be. We're here to polish up what it already is and make it represent you in the best way possible. So to conclude, I'm just going to give a couple of resources, which I'll put in the description box below. There are a few editing places, like one is called Reedsy. I know Fiverr has editors as well. Those are resources where you can go and look up an editor and maybe try to see some of their portfolio, try to see some of their previous work or reviews that anyone has put on. I will say for me, the absolute best way to find editors that I have found and that people have told me about is genuinely word of mouth. That doesn't mean that you need to know an editor. It just means that you want to get recommendations from people who have used the editors previously. So whether that means joining a writers group on Facebook or LinkedIn and then asking people like, hey, who did you use as an editor? What did you think? Doing research within the editing community. You can actually research, editors in my area, see if they have a website. But typically if you ask somebody, they're more than happy to share their resources with you. As am I, I'm more than happy to share with you my editors. Because I think that, editing and writing, we are a really beautiful community. Everyone is wonderful. Everyone I've met in the writing and editing community has been fantastic, and I've really enjoyed a lot of collaboration and working together and referring to each other. And a big part of that is because as an editor, we know that not everyone's going to want to work with us. So I encourage all of my authors, all of my writers, when they come to me and say, hey, can you edit my book? I make sure we get on the phone. I make sure we talk about the process and the price and what it looks like and the time commitment and the deadlines. Because you need to be comfortable with your editor. You need to be comfortable enough to disagree with them if you feel strongly, comfortable enough to give them some measure of control over your work, and also comfortable that you trust that they understand your messaging and your tone and that they're going to do right by you. So it should be somebody that, obviously you don't have to like the person, I guess, but I prefer to. I prefer to enjoy talking to and having some sort of working relationship with the people I work with. And that's something that's important to me. So when I look for editors, I'm looking for somebody that I believe can do a good job with my work, understands what I'm trying to say, and isn't going to make drastic sweeping changes without talking to me. So I'm going to link a couple of resources in the description, but I'd love to hear about your experience as a writer or an editor and, how authors find you, or as an author, how you look for editors. I'd love to hear about it. So I hope you guys have a great day and happy Wednesday.